Hey dudes, welcome to Splat from the Past, the only 80s themed horror and sci-fi show where things can get totally radical. Now today I will be interviewing a legendary writer and director, and when I say that I don't mean it lightly, a guy who directed so many cult classics from the 80s, Jeff Kanew, the director of Revenge of the Nerds, Gotcha, my favorite one, Tough Guys, Troop Beverly Hills, and a couple other ones like Eddie McConn's Run and Natural Enemies and so forth. And I'm having him on the show today, and I'm pretty frickin' excited because the guy is just a legend in cult movies, directing them and writing them. And I'm so excited. I mean, I really am excited because the guy is just a cult movie auteur. There's no other way of putting it. And I'm having him on the show today. And with that being said, here's my interview with Jeff Kanew.
Hi.
How you doing, sir?
I'm okay. How are you doing?
I'm great. Welcome to the show, and it's such an honor because I've loved your movies my whole life, and I thank you for taking the time this morning.
Oh, that's fine. I like anybody that doesn't think I'm dead.
Oh, boy. So, did you fall in love with movies at an early age?
Well, I fell in love with movies by watching a thing in New York on television called $1 Million Movie that the same movie and played over and over and over and over all day long. And for some reason, I would watch certain movies over and over and over. So, yeah, I like movies, but it wasn't my goal to be in the movie business. My goal was first to be a school teacher, and then my goal was to be a rock star, and then I stumbled into the movie business.
Well, that's a really good stumble, I have to say. Do you remember the first movie you ever saw?
Honestly, I don't think I could say, but the first movies that made an impact on me, one was called House of Wax, with Tim Price, that was scary, and one was some movie called With a Song in My Heart, which was the story of a singer named Jane Froman who was in a plane crash. She used to sing for the troops in World War II and got in a plane crash and became a crippled singer. And for some reason that made an impact on me. And Cinderella. Or do you mean serious movies, like when I actually could appreciate them? I don't know. There's a lot of weird movies, mostly from seeing them in black and white on TV.
Mm-hmm. What are your favorite movies of all time?
Well, I have very normal taste. Like, I like The Godfather, and I like Ordinary People, and I like every single time Taken is on, I watch it. But I know it's not. I know that's a shitty movie, but it's a great shitty movie.
Mm-hmm.
And I like Risky Business a lot. It almost cost me the job of doing the Nerds, actually. Because when I got interviewed for Revenge of the Nerds, I guess they must have asked me what I thought of, what was my favorite movie at the time. And they wanted me to say Animal House, and I said Risky Business, and that wasn't what they were looking for.
I love all those movies. They're all great. Did you go to college or film school?
No. I went to college for a while, but I wasn't studying film. And then when I was excused from college early because I was much too bright to be there, because that meant I would have to go to classes and stuff. So I was excused in my junior year from Columbia. Then I got a job, and it was like a low-level, entry-level job in a movie company, and I ended up transitioning into making movie trailers, and I did that for 12 years or so, and I was lucky, and I got pretty successful at that. But I was jealous of everybody that was actually making the movies, so then I transitioned out of great success and into something iffier, and that was what happened.
And you made a documentary called Black Rodeo.
Yes, I did that while I was still making trailers. That was sort of my second foray into producing
So this black rodeo thing, it was a phenomenon that was going on in Harlem at the time?
No, it wasn't a phenomenon. What happened was there was just starting to be a series of what they call black exploitation films, like Shaft and Superfly and whatever.
Right.
And so the black audience was being discovered by the movie industry. And at the time, I was trying to capitalize on that, so I was writing a script for a black Western. Basically, the story was there's a runaway slave who becomes a gunfighter, which I never actually did, but somebody in the middle of that said to me, hey, there's this all-black rodeo that's happening in Harlem. And I thought, oh, why don't I film that? So I kind of did, and that led to being a documentary called Black Rodeo. And I never actually pursued my black Western thing, but there was a film called The Legend of Nigger Charlie that was made with Fred Williamson. That was pretty much the same story. And then many years later, of course, Quentin Tarantino did Django, which was also the same story.
Mm-hmm. You got to interview Muhammad Ali in it?
It wasn't much of an interview, really. He and I had the same lawyer at the time, and I called, and this was when Ali couldn't box because of his stance on serving in Vietnam. So he had his license revoked, and he needed to earn some money. So the lawyer that represented both of us, I called him and said, do you think Ali would come down to the rodeo? And he said, I'll call you back. And he called me back, and he said, he'll come for $5,000 cash. So I said, okay, great. So paid him, and he came down, and he rode a horse, and he rode a bull, and he interacted with the cowboys, and we just filmed it. It wasn't really an interview situation, but he was great.
Mm-hmm. And then your first real movie was Natural Enemies.
Basically, yeah. I did an uncredited movie called The Wicked Die Slow, which was a softcore parody of, not parody, but an homage to The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly. But that no one knows about that, or few people. You can find it on the internet. But yeah, Natural Enemies was the first film that I tried to do on my own, and in fact did do.
Yeah, I saw it years ago. It's pretty dark for a first feature, I have to say.
Yeah, well, why didn't you tell me? You should have called me and warned me about that. I mean, no wonder it was impossible to raise money.
Mm-hmm. You got to work with...
But that spoke to me at the time. I was, whatever point I was in my life, I had just seen Ingmar Bergman's Scenes from a Marriage, and that really had a big impact on me, and I thought somebody ought to make an American version of that to show what happens when people sort of get what they've always dreamed of getting in life and realize it's nothing that like what they want. And then I found this novel called Natural Enemies that was pretty much the same story. So I decided to make that into a film, and eventually did. Mm-hmm. And I learned the lesson from that: never make a movie with your own money.
Yeah, that was before the independent boom went very independent, when people started putting their own money into film.
Yeah, I guess. I mean, it was just a thing. People that were mainstream just thought you were crazy if you ever put up your own money for anything.
Mm-hmm. You got to work with Hal Holbrook, Louise Fletcher, Jose Ferrer. That's a great cast.
Yeah, that was great. I mean, Hal was kind of a fishing expedition for me. Like, I didn't know him. Mm-hmm. I sent the script to a couple of other actors who never read it, like Paul Newman and George C. Scott. Mm-hmm. Then through a mutual connection, who somebody that worked with Robert Redford, who I also worked with, they sent it to Hal. And Hal read it and said, I'll do it. So now, without ever having met, I had Hal Holbrook to star in my movie, which was pretty good. And there's many stories within that adventure, but it got made.
Mm-hmm. And then you got to edit Robert Redford's Academy Award-winning masterpiece, Ordinary People. How did you get that job?
That's how I always refer to it. Robert Redford's Academy Award-winning masterpiece, Ordinary People, but that's what it was, I guess. Yeah, I got that by begging. I got that by, I had been doing trailers on Redford's movies for, Jeremiah Johnson and The Candidate, and 3 Days of the Condor. And so we knew each other, and at a certain point, I had gone and made Natural Enemies, and he asked to see Natural Enemies because he was thinking of using Hal Holbrook in Ordinary People. Mm-hmm. I showed it to him, and he decided not to use Hal. But in the conversation that we had about Ordinary People, I had now made a movie that nobody saw, and I was feeling like I should do something, other than try to make another independent film. Mm-hmm. So I said, who's going to edit this Ordinary People that you're doing? I've read the book. I like it. And he said, I don't know. And I said, well, where are you thinking of editing? And he said, New York. I said, well, I'm in New York. You know what? I have a great editor for you. And he said, who? And I said, me. He said, okay. that was that. And then the next day I got a call from the producer, a guy named Ron Schwery, who I didn't know, and his opening line to me was, who the fuck is Jeff Kanew? And I had to explain how the thing came about. And he said, well, Bob's got to be out of his mind. I mean, what other movies have you done? I said, well, I did this one movie that I directed and I edited it myself. He said, no, Bob's got to be nuts. What's your rate? I said, I don't know. I never really got paid to edit someone else's movie. He was apoplectic at this point. He said, we have the opportunity to hire Sam Osteen, who cut The Graduate and Rosemary's Baby, and Bob wants to hire you? And that was the beginning of that experience. But Ron and I ended up being good friends, and the result was amazing and very helpful to my career.
Yeah, Jeff, I have to say, those cutaways of Timothy Hutton and Judd Hirsch's office to the river drowning flashbacks, they are beautifully put together. I love those.
I'm glad you like those, and it was my idea to put that into the movie, and that was stolen from a movie called The Pawnbroker.
Oh, yeah, with Rod Steiger.
It's Rod Steiger. So that made an impression on me, and I saw the opportunity to try it. So Bob said, sure, why not? And we did it.
Yeah, it's beautiful. The whole movie is beautifully edited, I have to say. But then comes Eddie McConn's Run, your next directorial effort, which started out as a novel, and you adapted it into a screenplay.
Correct. And then in the process of trying to get that one made, I came in contact with a producer named Marty Brickman, who was Al Pacino's and Alan Alda's manager. He had a lot of power, and we shared the same agent, so all of a sudden he's now getting my movie financed. In the process of that, he became my boss, and he kind of bullied me through the whole process and fired me at the end of it. But I did write that movie and directed it and edited it, and then just wasn't invited to the cast and crew party. The whole other story. He saw the movie for the first time, and he had already made up his mind to take it away from me. Mm-hmm. For no reason. So within the first 5 minutes of the movie, he said, this needs a new editor. And I said, well, look, I may not be this great director yet, but I know I'm a really good editor. Why do you think that? And he said, I just do. So there was a rule, the Directors Guild had a rule that the producer could not cut his own version of a movie while the director was working on his. Mm-hmm. So he got me to waive that protection in exchange for we'll have back-to-back screenings of his version and my version. And whichever one tests the best, Universal was funding the movie, so they had a research department. So that's what we did. We went to Las Vegas and we had back-to-back screenings. And my version tested much higher than his. And so he walked up to me in the lobby of the theater after the screening, and I thought he was going to say, okay, fine, you win. But what he said was, I'm going to cut your fucking balls off. And that was it.
It was the first time you worked with Kirk Douglas, though. I mean, you guys like...
Are these stories like the wrong tone or something that you don't want to hear that kind of shit?
Oh, you can say anything you want, that's all.
Yeah, okay.
No.
Kirk Douglas, in fact, when I was writing that and thinking of it, I wasn't thinking of Kirk Douglas. I was thinking of more gritty New York guys like Peter Boyle and Gene Hackman.
Yeah.
The producer said, we're going to use Kirk Douglas because he has more international box office. So I met Kirk, and he saw Natural Enemies and happened to like it, so we now had a deal. Mm-hmm. He came down and did his several weeks as the villain on that movie, and at the beginning he was rather tense because I was a little intimidated by him, and he had a lot of thoughts about the script, and I really didn't have enough experience working with I said, oh, I get what he's talking about. And then from that point on, he became kind of a mentor of mine, and we've been friends ever since.
Wow.
Last Sunday, I was at his 102nd birthday party.
Yeah, 102. God, that's amazing. He's still alive and kicking. I mean, all of his contemporaries are gone.
Yeah, well, he says that all the time. You know, it's sad because I mean, he's still Kirk Douglas, yet he's no longer physically what he was, and he knows it. So it's like watching just the clock tick. That's how he feels at this moment, which is a shame. But he still works on things. He just wrote a book recently about letters that he and his wife sent to each other, love letters, and it's actually pretty good.
Wow.
And actually, we might be turning that into not a play exactly, but a staged reading situation.
Oh, that would be great. Yeah, John Schneider, he was on the Dukes of Hazzard at the time. He must have been great to work with.
John is a sweet guy, and when Bregman said that he wanted to hire John Schneider, I had a different thing in mind because John was about 19 at the time, or 20.
Mm-hmm.
And the story is about a man with two kids who's running away from prison to be with his family, so I didn't think John was old enough. But that wasn't my call, so it was John, and we rewrote the script to make the guy a little bit younger, but older than 20, but not quite what he should have been. And John was learning, and we had a good experience working together. And the movie was okay. I mean, it wasn't terrible. It wasn't great. I think we were all having a learning experience.
Mm-hmm. And you gave John Goodman his first movie role in it.
Yeah, and he auditioned, and I guess the one thing I've learned of doing a number of movies is in the auditioning process, when somebody's that talented, it just jumps right out the very first time they show up and read anything. John was one of those. He just came in and read that silly scene, where he plays this nasty oil company guy who's being mean to John Schneider, and he was perfect. And then I used him again on Nerds, and then he became a pretty big deal.
Mm-hmm. And then you worked with him in the movie that fucked me up at the age of 2, Revenge of the Nerds.
Yeah, fucked you up at the age of 2? Could you really understand the nastiness of that movie at 2 years old?
Didn't understand it, but I just remember the nudity, because my brother had the movie on tape, and he was 12 at the time, and yeah.
Well, you shouldn't say it fucked you up. You should say it gave you a head start.
It did give me a head start, but it's one of the many things.
Words, but yeah.
It's one of the many things that made me the guy I am today, obsessed with sex.
Okay, well, I mean, that was certainly a part of it. In the original script, the sexual element was certainly there. So I didn't write that, and I came aboard as the director for hire.
Mm-hmm.
But we kept the process very open, and everybody was collaborating and contributing, but the sexual thing was there from the beginning. What we tried to do, myself and Bobby and Anthony and everybody really, was not have it be a nasty little cartoon about ugly guys with glasses. We tried to make them real people that we could relate to, because most of us feel like nerds. We feel like the outcast in a given situation. And so that's, I think, why the movie caught on, because people related to it on whatever level they did, and not being the in crowd.
Yeah, is it true that this movie, along with the other sex comedy movies Fox released that year, Bachelor Party and Give Me an F, they were all tax write-offs because of Return of the Jedi?
I don't know. I don't have the inside scoop on that. I know that period of time Fox was making, there was also, I don't know if Fox made Porky's, but Porky's was supposed to be a tax write-off. They didn't care how well it did. It was a way of almost like laundering money. And I mean, Nerds had a budget of like $5.5, just under $6 million, which for a studio was sort of low. I don't know about all the other films, but it may be that may be true. Although the guy that hired me to do it, his name was Joe Roseanne. He was the head of production at Fox.
Mm-hmm.
And he was somebody that I had known for a while. And he told me the day he got the job that he was going to be fired within a year, and he was right.
Yeah.
So the new guy decided he hated every movie that Joe had commissioned and tried to bury nerds. Instead of opening it in 1,000 theaters, he opened it in 100 theaters. And one day I was walking through a restaurant in town, and somebody that I knew walked up to me and said, "Hey, I hear your movie's a piece of shit." And I said, "Where'd you hear that?" He goes, "From Norman Levy. He was the new head of Fox." Well, that's very nice. That was so we were up against that, but they couldn't kill the thing because it just stayed alive and ended up doing pretty well.
Yeah.
Although if you look at their books, you'll see that Revenge of the Nerds never reached profit. Even though they made 3 sequels to it.
Yeah.
That was pretty good Hollywood bookkeeping.
Yeah. The movie, though, has a really positive message of both pure and self-acceptance, laced with all this raunchy comedy. It does have a good balance.
Yeah, well, that's what we hope to maintain, so that it wouldn't just be a bunch of jokes about, glasses and high water pants, whatever they call it. In Germany, the title was, I can't say it in German, but it was No Hope for the Short Pants. That was the title in German.
I've interviewed Julia Montgomery 4 times, and the first time we talked, she told me there was a lot of partying going on in the hotel. John Goodman punched a wall, and then the hole was in the wall and stuff. It was really wild during the off-duty hours.
I was not part of that, but I know it was happening. I was either doing production work or trying to sleep. But yes, it was that kind of scene. In fact, Curtis Armstrong, who played Booger, just wrote a book this past year about his experiences, and it's a fun read.
Yep, I met Curtis at a convention last year, and I have a copy signed by him.
Yeah, so
he's a great guy.
That'll give you a good. Anybody who wants to read that will get a taste of what that set experience was like on there, for the actors anyway.
You guys shot pretty quickly in Arizona.
Yes, we shot. I think it might have been as many as 8 weeks. It wasn't more.
Then you did probably my favorite of all your movies, Gotcha.
Yeah, it's kind of my favorite too. I mean, in terms of the experience was great, and I'm pretty happy with the way the movie came out. It didn't do well, but somehow people still paid attention to it in video and DVD, so a lot of people now like that movie, but at the beginning it didn't open well at all. But it was fun to make.
Yeah, I had Nick Corey on last week. He told me he had a great time shooting, especially in Paris, and he told me he was a replacement for S.A. Morales.
Not a replacement. There was on that movie there was camps on both sides. One camp wanted to hire Craig Sheffer to play Anthony's part, and probably Issa Morales for the other. But I wanted to work with Anthony Edwards because I had such a good experience with him on Nerd, so I had to sort of do battle to get that decision. And then on the Issa versus Nick Corey, one of the producers also liked Nick, so we managed to win those battles. There's those kind of negotiations happen all the time on movies.
Yeah, I think you guys made a great choice with him. He steals the movie, and I think it's one of those performances that was unrecognized by the Academy. I told him that.
Well, but he was fun. I mean, he was new, and about the only thing I have to say that's not really positive about him, but it is in a way it's kind of charming, is that every time we were ready to roll, someone would turn around and go, "Where's Nick? Nick!" Like standing there, like ready to go. But he always showed up and did his job well. And I think the chemistry was good. I mean, he and Tony got along well. I got along well with both of them. And Linda, who was sort of a really kind of a find, although she had done one other thing, I think, or 2 other things prior.
Yeah.
She made the whole thing really cool. And the reason that I hired her, even though she was an American actress, because it was really supposed to be an actual Czechoslovakian spy. But I saw the studio was trying to force me to look at Matthew Modine instead of Anthony.
Yeah.
And so I looked at the scene from Vision Quest, and I saw Linda, and I thought, wow, this girl's really new and special. And so I met her in New York, and I asked her, "Do you think I'll talk to a voice coach or a dialect coach. And she came in the next day and did that thing that Sasha does in that movie, the way she speaks with Leogen and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So this is great, but I think that the press will know that it's an American actress faking this, and so they'll think it's bad, unless we change the script and in the end find out that she wasn't really Czech, she was really American faking being Czech. So that's what we did.
Oh, wow.
Just to accommodate her.
Mm-hmm. And Alex Rocco and Marla Adams are great as the rich parents.
Yeah, they were, you know, that was just the casting director brought them in, and I thought, yeah, that's great.
And then another classic from my childhood you did was Tough Guys.
I think young kids would appreciate that movie, but that's good.
Well, I've always been an old soul. I've always loved, you know, old movie stars and all that. So
that's kind of one of the main thing that I was excited about doing that movie was to work with Kirk Douglas and Burt Lancaster. Was certainly that the little kid in me was excited about just that possibility. Turned out to be more of a roller coaster ride than I expected, but I was glad I did it and survived.
Yeah, I mean, this movie set the stage for a lot of movies that came later, where you get all these old movie stars together in a comedy where they're trying to adjust to present day. Like about 5 years ago, that movie Las Vegas came out with Michael Douglas and Robert De Niro and Morgan Freeman and Kevin Kline. It reminded me of like that, you know. And
yeah, that was the intent. I mean, what happened was the guys that wrote that were watching the Oscar presentation, whatever year that was, 84, 85, and Kirk and Burt were presenters. And they may have even run a clip from many years before that when they presented together and they sang a song called "It's Great Not to Be Nominated." so the writers decided, let's see if we can bring those two guys back together on screen, and they wrote Tough Guys.
Mm-hmm.
Then they sent it to, I don't remember who they sent it to, but somebody knew that I had worked with Kirk Douglas, so they sent it to me. And the same producer, the guy that started me on Nerds, was now being an independent producer, and I guess he must be the one that he sent it to me. And then I got it to Kirk. Kirk liked it. Kirk got it to Burt. Burt agreed to do it. And we took it to Disney, and they liked the idea, and everything was great until Burt decided he might change his mind. And he basically kept us dangling for almost a year. He kept telling Kirk, yeah, I'll do it, but first I'm going to do this other movie. Mm-hmm. Then that movie would wrap, and we'd start to get ready to go. And then he would say, oh, no, I'm going to do this miniseries. Anyway, and finally we had to just either demand that he put up or shut up until he quit. Mm-hmm. and that was New Year's Day, I think, of 85 or 86. And so I had to call Kirk and say, Bert just said he's out. And Kirk got very upset and called Bert. And a few minutes later, Kirk called me back and said, Bert's back in. And when I had gotten the news about Bert, I said something honest to his agent. I said, I want to speak to Bert, and he wouldn't let me. Mm-hmm. So I said, well, you just tell him for me that he shouldn't have done this to his friend Kirk Douglas or to the studio or me. And as far as I'm concerned, even though he's a great actor, he's an immoral, irresponsible prick. So the agent repeated that. And then when Kirk got Bert to agree to do the film, the rules were I had to apologize to Bert. But I felt like I shouldn't do that and didn't want to do that because he was a prick. So I said no. So then the compromise was he will do the movie, but he won't speak to you. So the first couple of days we were working together, he wouldn't talk to me. He would talk through intermediaries if he had anything to say. But then he got tired of that. And by the end, we were okay.
Oh my God. Yeah, I heard he was a handful, that guy. But
yeah, he kind of was.
He was
he was great. He was the best Burt Lancaster there was.
Yeah, he was a pioneer. He was like one of the first movie stars to have his own production company and do independent films, you know. But you're so lucky you got to do their last film together. And, you know, I mean, the movie is hilarious. My grandma and I used to watch it when I was a kid, and she would just howl at Eli Wallach throughout the movie. She loved him.
Yeah, he was great. He's a great guy and very easy to work with, too.
Yeah, and I also got my dad into the movie, too. He loves the gay bar scene. Shall we? Shall we what? Shall we dance?
Yeah.
It's a classic. And that was back when Touchstone Pictures was Touchstone Films.
I guess so, yeah.
Yeah, I guess films didn't roll off the tongue.
I think they should have called it Touchstone Bullies, because that's what they were.
Yeah. Alexis Smith is in the movie. Was her husband Craig Stevens on the set?
No, but he was Peter Gunn.
Yes, he was. Dana Carvey, his dad was my dad's business teacher when my dad was in high school.
Really?
Yeah. Dana
was great. That was another struggle. The studios didn't want Dana, and I had to audition him on tape a number of times. And so the first time I auditioned him, because Dana was a good actor, not just funny. So, and the role wasn't really a comedic role. So he played it straight, and I thought he was great. And I brought them the tape, and they said, he's not funny. I said, yeah, but he could be funny, but we're not pushing him in that direction because he's just the young guy that's in awe of these two old criminals. Well, we need him to be funny. So I went back and re-auditioned him, and he, not that he would ever make that choice to play the character that way, but he played him much funnier. And they thought, okay, well, I guess if he can be this funny. So they actually said, he's too funny now. And so he got the job. And, he tells stories about being in awe, especially of birds.
Wow. Yeah, I love when Charles Durning's like, where'd they go? And then suddenly they're like, well, I've been working on the railroad.
Right.
That was great.
That's another great story. Is that there's a scene in the movie when Kirk moons the helicopter that Charles Durning is in. Well, that wasn't ever in the script. And one weekend, I get a call from Kirk, and he says, I got an idea, come over to my house. So I go to his house. And he had just seen something on TV where Jim McMahon, the quarterback of the Bears, mooned a helicopter that was flying over their training camp for the Super Bowl. And he said, I want to moon the helicopter. I said, yeah, okay, but it's not in the script, and it's Disney, and it's, Bert, he believes, in maintaining dignity, and I don't think that anybody's going to go for it. And he says, just shoot it, if they don't like it, we'll cut it out. And I said, okay. And that's what we did.
Oh, man. Yeah, that's pretty funny. How on earth did you get involved with Troop Beverly Hills?
How on earth? Okay. Another too long story, but I had been offered the script when it was called Be Prepared, and I didn't really like it. I thought it was okay. So I turned it down, and I was on other projects, maybe right after Tough Guys. Maybe right before Tough Guys, I don't remember, because that script was around for a while. And then I had this terrible episode of my life where I found a script and set it up that I really, really loved, and was directing it until I wasn't, and that was called Dead Poets Society. And in the process of that, I realized that, I prepped that movie, I cast that movie, I had it all the way up to the first day of shooting, but Disney had their own ideas about who should play the teacher, so I was bringing them new actors like Liam Neeson and Alec Baldwin, and they were turning them down. They wanted to do it with, according to the list they sent me, Danny DeVito, Mel Brooks, Albert Brooks, or David Letterman. And so we were not seeing things eye to eye, and eventually I was gone, and they got Robin and Peter Weir, and they made the movie, and it was a great script. My whole point is, I thought to myself, I'm so easy to fire because I really haven't had that many hits. I need a hit. And I heard that this should Be Prepared, which is now going to be Troop Beverly Hills with Shelley Long, was going to get made by another company, and Howard Zeef was going to direct it. And he had done Private Benjamin, and he's a pretty smart guy. But Howard was leaving
Yeah. Well, it's funny. It's so unlike you to do family entertainment, even though you've been versatile throughout your whole career. You've never repeated yourself.
Yes and no. I mean, I think Two Beverly Hills was Revenge of the Nerds, but it was sort of reversed. The rich kids were the underdogs.
Mm-hmm.
And even in Tough Guys, in a way, it was, they were the underdogs because they were old and not relevant anymore, and they had to prove themselves. So there was a little bit of a threat. Not that that was intentional, but it just seemed like it came out that way.
Yeah.
And then in 2001, I did a Holocaust movie in Russia, and I guess the Jews were the underdog. I keep making the same movie over and over.
Yeah. Oh man. Yeah, I think Shelley and Mary Gross and Betty Thomas, they're all great together. They were all in Second City back in the day.
Yeah.
And
they were all good.
Mm-hmm. How did you get Kooky Burns in the movie?
Well, part of the movie was it's Hollywood, so there's going to be a lot of cameo types, and so when there was a role of an out of work actor from a previous decade, I don't remember who put the list together. It was originally offered to Batman.
Mm-hmm. Adam West,
but he passed, and then I don't know if it was my idea or someone else's, but Kooky was there, and I loved him because I was a big 77 Sunset Strip watcher, so that was great, and he was great. I was real happy to know him and to work with him.
Mm-hmm. I reached out to Heather Hopper for an interview. She's one of those former child actors that doesn't want to talk about any aspect of her child acting.
Well, but she's last year there was a unauthorized musical parody of Troop Beverly Hills.
Mm-hmm.
In a theater in LA called the Rockwell Theater. It was really great. I mean, I thought it was going to be an embarrassment. It was so great, so funny and creative. And I went to see it just to see what it was like, and there was Heather. And now recently, a drag show called Troop Beverly Hills has been playing in LA, and Heather went to see that. She wrote me and said, "You got to come see this." So she's not ashamed of it or anything.
Yeah. I don't know. Maybe she was just having a bad day or something. But I love that Beach Boys song that's in it.
Well, yeah, I mean, Make It Big.
Yeah.
That was something that I was kind of ordered to use by Jerry Weintraub because he wanted a Beach Boys song in the movie, and I was happy with it. But we had another song in its place that we had to take out called "Shopping for Love" that I thought was really appropriate for the movie. But the Beach Boys is fine.
Yeah, Beach Boys had just made a comeback with Kokomo, and
right,
they probably thought, oh, this is going to be the next big hit for them.
You never know. I mean, they could have been right.
Mm-hmm. So you've directed and edited films here and there since then, but now are you retired?
Good question. No, only put it this way, not by choice.
Mm-hmm. Not by choice.
It's one of those things. You get old, you have a few flops in a row, you piss off a few people, and suddenly you're retired. But I mean, in that, hold on a second. In the period after, I guess it was after V.I. Warshawski,
mm-hmm.
when everything sort of went away, and so I haven't done anywhere near as much work as I should have in the last couple of decades, but I did a few things, and I'm still thinking of doing stuff. It's not like I've given up, I don't enjoy anything as much as I enjoy making a movie, so I still want to try.
Mm-hmm. The business has changed now. I mean, how do you think how it is now?
I don't think it's changed because they make all these comic book tentpole movies, so they can do sequel after sequel. In that sense, there are fewer small films, but on the other hand, there are many new arenas, Netflix, Amazon, making smaller films and dramatic films, trying different things. So I think it's possibly a better time than ever for a wider variety of movies to be made.
But there's so much content out there now. You know, it's hard for movies to be seen a lot now.
Anyway, so no, I'm not retired, but also I don't exactly have the answers to any of that stuff.
Mm-hmm. Well, Jeff, I hope you make another movie, and this was such an honor. I thank you so much, and I hope you have Merry Christmas, Happy New Year, and have a great day.
Okay, thank you, man. Bye.
Have a good night, day. Well, there you have it. Jeff Kanew. Ain't he a cool dude? Thank you so much, Jeff. I thank you for all the years of making great movies, great entertainment. You are awesome. And it was just such an honor to interview you and for making so many great cult movies. And I hope you make another movie soon. If you like this video, everyone, please subscribe to my YouTube channel. Add me as a friend on Facebook. Join my Tommy Kovac comedian page on Facebook. Follow me on Twitter and Instagram and all that fun stuff. Well, that's all time we have this week on Splat from the Past. Until next time, this is Tommy Throwback Kovac saying, there's no shame in living in the past because the present sucks. Later, dudes!